Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Eddie Leeway podcast show. This is Eddie Sutton along with my co-host Doc Ock. Say hello, sir. Very, very nice to see you today.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about wrestling and rock stars.
What are you gonna do?
So,
how are you, folks?
So how was your weekend, kiddo? What have you been up to?
Trying to recover from a respiratory infection that I thought was going to put me 6 feet under, and then I just decided I don't care if it does, and I showed up today.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if there's the occasional cough in the middle of it, you'll forgive me, right?
showing up deserves a golf clap.
Do 50 push-ups, drink a bottle of fucking Jack Daniels, and let's do this.
Yeah, it's been a long weekend. As a goof, I cut that wrestling promo earlier last Sunday. I was amazed at the response that I got over it.
Where's that posted?
It's only on Facebook right now. You'd have to go to my Facebook page, which is eddie.sutton.754. And, if you're someone who knows what a wrestling promo is, you'll enjoy the satire. But I'm hoping that there's a few haters out there that think I'm actually being serious, because they'll be the true mark who will go out and talk about the video and get more people to check it out.
You may actually be the reason I go on Facebook for the first time.
Well, there you go.
Because yes, I'm the last human being alive who's not on Facebook. Yeah, what can I say? I'm a retard. Are we allowed to say that? I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
Well, they're not going to know who you are, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, whatever. But one of these days, I guess I can put some false identity up, right? Just so, because I have nothing I want to post up there. Well, I don't know. I have no reason to be on. I'm one of those weird people. I have no reason for being on Facebook. I just don't get it.
People get a little caught up with it, I think, in the sense of loneliness and trying to socialize. But it is a beautiful thing when you're trying to reunite with people you've not been in touch with for ages. And it's one of the only promotional tools a lot of people have to promote themselves as an artist or contracted professional.
Oh, that was the reason for Facebook in the first place, right? Getting in touch with people that you haven't seen in ages. Initially, that was the idea, wasn't it?
No, but I think what they were using it for was a strictly social media tool. It started out on the college campuses up north.
Okay.
And, it was for that, get to know me, get to know you type of thing. But people saw the relevance and the tool to promote as well as its social thing.
Okay, yeah. I feel like if I haven't seen you in 20 years, kill yourself. Fuck you.
I tend to call it fake fuckers because, there's a lot of fake motherfuckers on it,
But the other reason is that there was a guy, I probably shouldn't even say this on the podcast, but there was a guy that I used to work with, and this guy, creep, he used to stalk women in the office on Facebook and friend them, and then he'd get all butthurt if they didn't friend him back.
Yeah,
I don't even know what friending is.
And then the real crazy shit starts coming out.
He used to tell me, he was like, "Yeah, that fucking bitch, she didn't friend me on, or she unfriended me because I said X, Y, Z," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, you're coming off a little stalkery, dude."
Yeah, you're about 2 steps away from becoming a serial killer.
Yeah, and I'm just. And I got 2 or 3 friends who really make a big deal out about this social media thing, and I'm sitting there. You stare at a screen, and you say, "Friend me or don't," and you get really bent out of shape if people click the wrong box.
And the true definition of the word friend is distorted on there, because just because I accept you don't make you a friend Do you know what I mean? Like the same way people use the word brother nowadays after they know you for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that gets misused in a lot of ways. For me, friend is like, well, you never asked me for any money, so okay, I guess we're friends. But that's just my personal hang up. So anyway, here we are. We're doing the damn thing. So this is our, I don't know what, second, third, something like that. We got one in the can and we don't know if it's coming out.
There's quite a few hours in the can. We're just trying to sort them out and edit them to not just have the snippets on YouTube, but also to have it properly on iTunes for so many other people who have yet to hear us. You know?
We'll see. Anyway, so let's get on with let's start the fucking show.
All right.
So we were talking over the last few days, because this is actually the first time we've spoken outside the podcast.
Yep.
Those who listen don't know that we met on the podcast, and this is really literally the third time that we've been in the same room together.
We try to maintain our face-to-face dialogue strictly for the podcast.
And obviously Eddie is the former singer of Leeway and now of Truth and Rights.
And I call it Leeway NYC.
There you go. And I'm just some motherfucker that somebody knew and said, hey, Eddie, you should meet this motherfucker. So
here we are.
Not a single one of you would know me from anywhere for any reason. And I'm cool with that. So we've been, we did a little dialogue and we were talking about some shit, and then I did some research on you, and because you know, even though we're roughly in the same age group, I only knew about you from one album, which was Born to Expire.
Okay.
And I remember that album from back then. It didn't get released at the time you guys made it. It came out a couple of years later.
Almost 18 months later from when we recorded it. So everybody in New York area actually heard the rough mixes for a great deal of time before the album actually got out and we really established our national and international fame, if you will.
So whenever somebody brought up the term Leeway to me, I would always think Squealer.
Yeah.
That's what always comes to mind. And your later albums come out. And
Desperate Measures, Adult Crash, and the final one, Open Mouth Kiss, 1995.
And I missed those last two completely. So after our second meeting, I decided, okay, I'm gonna listen up to these motherfuckers. I'm gonna do my homework.
There you go.
And the one thing that really stunned me, I was literally stunned when I heard a Buzzcocks cover.
Why not?
Why not? Well, I hear everything that's going on, and I'm walking through Midtown Manhattan at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just like, okay, I'm used to the sound of this, and then you hit me with a Buzzcocks cover, and it's one of those things that was such a surprise to me, and also I was touched because that hit me where I live.
Mm-hmm. Well, Buzzcocks were a great band, and you know, when I started going to shows in 1988, 81, you know, even though American hardcore was really what I was coming to see, obviously we were all listening to these relative punk bands as well that came out years earlier.
Wow, yeah. And I guess I had this predisposition to thinking that hardcore guys don't give a fuck about punk from the late 70s.
Or appreciate the history of where this music came from.
Yeah. And that's part of, because I'm not part of that scene. I don't come from that scene. I'm ignorant. I don't come from any scene, actually. But I'm ignorant as to how people think of these things. So I'm listening to, I'm rooted in punk before anything else.
Gotcha.
Before I got into metal and anything else, I was into late 70s punk, and that because it was the most guitar-centric music I could find.
Oh, great 3-minute songs.
Yeah, what else could you want from if you're a 10-year-old boy? And then from that point on, I got into everything else. So I thought that was lost to me, and I'm listening to this, I guess you say, crossover kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden I hear "I Believe," and it just, my jaw dropped, and it's a good song.
Thank you.
And I'm not being a kiss ass, because I just don't do that with anyone. But I thought your version of it was, should I say this? I thought your version of it was as good as the recorded, but your version of it was also reminiscent of the demo version.
Gotcha.
Because I heard the demo version of "I Believe" and the recorded version, and they're very different. So your version was more like the demo version, but I liked the vocals better the way you did it.
Maybe it's my R&B approach. I mean, obviously, me and Pete Shelley are, opposites of the personality type of thing. You know what I mean?
Pete Shelley had this, when he did the demo version, he was almost screaming at the top of his lungs. It sounded like he was trying to sing the song a half an octave higher. And anyone who's a fan of that band knows Pete Shelley had this kind of, shall we say, hyper effeminate voice.
Yeah, I'm a bit more street than Pete.
Oh yeah. Yours was far more. Actually, when I heard that song, your version of it, I was like, he's singing in a kind of a more guttural tone than people might expect.
Well, especially the end. Yeah.
So I dug that shit so hard.
I think with some of the covers that Leeway did back in the day, it was always vocally challenging. A lot of people don't realize we did a Smiths song not too long after that, or just a little sooner than that. We did The Last of the International Playboys.
Really?
Yeah.
Which album?
It's a compilation. The World Still Won't Listen. It's
find
a compilation of the Smiths. You'll find it on YouTube. It's there.
Yeah,
it's definitely there.
Interestingly, because I kind of checked out on crossover in the late '80s. I checked out on all hard music.
We went more alternative because we went back to the one guitar for the last two albums.
Right.
So we did try to.
That was AJ?
Yeah, and we stepped away a little bit from being crossover, if you will, and we're trying to find a different rhythm. Just expanding our horizons. We never believed that, you should be doing the same record over and over again. You should be exploring and expanding. And that's what
obviously you're going to take a little bit of shit from the public for doing that.
Well, it took a decade for people to really appreciate Open Mouth Kiss, but people say this is an underrated album. If you really took the time to listen to it, it would start to really grow on you.
I don't get the people who are just like straight up, Born to Expire, and that's it. And I'm just like, I was around when Born to Expire came out.
I know.
And that was the only thing I knew. And then literally 2 weeks ago, I heard Open Mouth Kiss for the first, not even 2 weeks ago. What was that, a week ago?
Yeah.
I heard Open Mouth Kiss for the first time, and I actually heard the other one before that, which was
Adult Crash.
Adult Crash, and I love the guitars on that, and I got this. It took me to a place in time, and these are albums that I've never heard before, and it made me feel like I was like 20 something again.
Cool.
Hearing bands like never mind.
No, but that means a lot to me because it shows the music withstood the test of time, and a lot of people panned Adult Crash because it's not produced well. Too many guys trying to make it happen. And we were in a very, very weird period at the time. I wasn't doing too well myself. I was able to create some magic with songs like Three Wishes and really arrange good vocals, but then some of the other shit just wasn't 100%.
So, Three Wishes, by the way, the first thing I noticed about that song is harmonies. Mm-hmm. And I was like, where's that coming from? Is that like an HR influence?
It's that, but I grew up on R&B and soul as well as rock and roll and some heavy shit, from my dad and the influence with both my parents, I never wanted to be just a guttural dog barking vocalist. There's no challenge in that for me.
Yeah.
The object for me as a vocalist is to try to sing, but still maintain a masculinity.
Yeah, and that's what caught my attention, actually, because if I go back in time and I was into a lot of very obscure thrash music in the mid 80s. Like there was a band called Hawaii.
Don't know.
Those of you who are into that really bizarre underground shit, and I was into a lot of doom metal, like Sirathungal.
But there's no singing in that, and that's why
there's a lot of. Well, yeah, you're right, and so that's my point.
That's why people are like, born to expire, fuck that older shit.
But I hear some of your stuff, and I hear an attempt to hit more than 3 notes, and there's melody in there, but it's not Baroque. It's not you're going all over the place with these curly Q melodies that make you sound like Bruce. But it works, and I just went, this guy's on to something. He's like clearly trying to at least incorporate influences from outside of this genre.
And
it
be
works
an individual. And what many cannot seem to be.
If you remember what it was like in the late 70s, when the punk explosion began, individuality was the rule.
No.
Not the exception.
Exactly.
You had bands a lot of bands sounded like they were a rehash of 50s rock. Okay. But there were also a lot of bands doing just the most bizarre off the wall things. And it was the weirdest mishmash of stuff that happened in like a 2 to 4 year span. And bands came and went very quickly, but it's like my favorite period in time ever.
It's where you get bands like Plasmatics, but then also the Van Halen.
The B-52s at the same time.
Van Halen wasn't punk, but there was a lot of bands that looked like Van Halen but could not sound and be Van Halen.
Yeah, you had, I say this all the time, between 76 and 84 was the golden age of rock music, because everything from the more commercially accessible Fleetwood Mac stuff, to the more bizarre underground stuff, to the really, really like no wave thing, like Teenage Jesus and Lydia Lunch and all of this weird New York underground shit.
Yeah,
everything happened, and I never felt like we surpassed that as far in the scope of music available.
You would think with all the music available and knowledge today, we would be doing so much more with all these different genres and sounds that are out there, but we're not.
Well, we're creating subgenres now. So back in those days when you had, I don't know, the B-52s and Patti Smith and all, it's all punk. Now you have hardcore, metalcore, Black and Death,
grindcore.
I don't even understand what these subgenres mean anymore.
Emo, grindcore, whatever.
I don't know. Grindcore. Does grindcore exist anymore? You guys in the control room who are not paying attention to me. Does grindcore exist anymore? Go back to what you were doing. So
it's weird. I hate the labeling of things. Really.
I get what it's trying to do, because I remember I actually did. What was it like in the 2000s? I tried to get into grindcore because I thought I would be interested in bands like Bolt Thrower. And I was really into that. Okay, there's some new heavy music out, so let me dig what it is. But the delineation between one genre and another might be, well, these guys down-tuned to C, and these other guys down-tuned to B, and one guy barks, and the other guy does Cookie
Screams
Monster.
high.
Yeah, the other guy does Cookie Monster. And just those slight differences are what makes you this genre or that. Or maybe my drummer does blast beats during the verses.
I can't hear it. I can't even listen to it because like one guy will be doing like the guttural voice and the other guy doing the high voice. It sounds like a dog and cat fighting. It's like
some of it. Well, it got silly after a while. And wasn't there some band called like K9us or something like that?
I don't
where
know.
They actually used the sound of barking dogs as their vocalist.
You might as well.
Hilarious.
You might as well. You might get more attention.
But in all fairness, I'm silly. I'm an old like death metal guy. I like death metal in its first incarnation. I'm not so sure about now. But I get that, if you're really going to be, I got my head down and I'm hard ass, you don't want to hear some guy singing melodies. I understand that. But it got silly when
Or at
you started.
I'm not telling you need to sing to get my attention or anything like that, but you got to do something other than what everyone else is doing, because if you don't, you're just going to get caught in the fucking mix.
Well, I tuned my guitar down to, B flat below middle, below 440 or some. I don't even know anymore. But it's my guitar is so low that it's lower than the 5-string bass, and the strings flap around so much that you can literally play hopscotch in between. You can double dutch between my low E string and my low A string. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I'm sure some people are enjoying that. And I think music has, to the individual that's listening to it, has cultural impact. Mm-hmm. So if you're in high school and you're down with a group of kids that only listens to death metal, to you, it's important to distinguish yourself from kids who are into black metal.
No, I get it. I definitely get it. And just because I don't understand it doesn't mean stop what you're doing. But, it's hard to say. I always
think music has cultural implications, at least to the listener. Mm-hmm. Whatever the listener thinks his culture is, then he or she, it's got to be PC here, he or she needs to hear stuff that conforms to the culture that they feel that they belong to, or the tribal instinct. All right.
I could see that for a fan, but as an artist, you should always be expanding.
Oh, yeah. Fans don't get that musicians don't listen to music that way.
Yeah.
Especially if you're somebody who plays like guitar or keyboards. We always go out on a limb because we hear all music as, oh, that's chromatic, or that is you're playing changes, or you're playing. We can hear something by Candiria and go, yeah, that guy is playing changes, like a jazz player would.
Exactly.
Or we could hear something that the Rollins band did and go, well, it sounds like something John Zorn.
For the longest time, I would listen and think like a fan, you know what I mean? Because I don't use or play an instrument like most musicians and singers and songwriters do. So for me, I was always looking at a fan type of perspective, because if it put a chill up my spine, I knew it was working.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings to mind a thought that I've had for like 2 decades, because I've been in now more bands than I can remember the names of. And I always had this thought that there are 2 streams of thought. There's this one stream of thought of, there's a way guitar players, drummers, and bass players think, and then there's the way singers think.
Yeah.
And singers oddly enough, are usually the band leaders. Why is that?
I think because they're watching more what's going on live and
But
around
they're usually
them.
the most musically uneducated
Yes.
members of the band.
Yes. I think it's the personality that tends to override everyone else. It's almost like the strongest personality leads.
Or is it is that it, or is it this is the guy who's paying for the rehearsal space? Let's be honest.
I think that's about a third of the time.
Because I swear, dude, I shit you not. I'm all right. I'm gonna let something out right now.
No,
okay?
I can see, but before you do, I can definitely see that. Why is this guy in the band? Because
I'm gonna let something. Yeah. So okay. So I was in this long time ago. I was in this band, and a bunch of guys who are just. I can honestly say I was probably the least musically educated member. These were guys who had jazz chops. Okay.
okay.
My singer gets tired of them and fires the whole fucking band.
Why?
And says, "You're gonna do everything. We're gonna do a bunch of demos and record, and you're gonna do everything." And I was like, this person is fucking out of this person's mind.
Yeah, that's the problem with letting your singer be the band leader.
Yeah. But I get it. No, I do understand some part of it though, because sometimes the guys or girls who are playing instruments get myopic. We get tunnel vision about what we're doing, and instead of thinking about the big picture, we start thinking about, I need to incorporate this melodic minor scale into this solo, or I need to do some harmonic changes into this, and that's not what makes a good song necessarily. Sometimes the singers have a better a big picture of what's happening.
Or they're just plain deluded.
Or they just pay, or they're paying for the rehearsal space.
And we're just gonna do whatever they want to do, even though it sounds fucking crazy.
It has always baffled me. It to this day, and sometimes, yeah, if you're in a songwriting mode, you do actually put your singer's earmuffs on and try to think like a singer. And I've been guilty of that too. There have been times where I just shut it all out, and I'm going to ignore theory and everything I've learned over these years and try to think like a singer. And you know what? That's actually when some of the best shit I've ever done has come out.
It's always hit or miss, though. That's what it is. There's no formula. If we understood a formula and we had a guaranteed game plan, we'd all be rock stars. So it's always hit or miss. It's by chance. It's by circumstance. It's luck. It's all those things rolled into one, you know? And it's like hitting the numbers. You're going to normally not hit them day after day, week after week, year after year. But maybe you'll hit it once and things will go right.
Yeah. I felt the need to bring it up because it has been a constant throughout my life. I've spent more time being a musician in my lifetime than not. So, and I couldn't help but notice every time I went on an audition, the singer was the guy talking to me. And he was always the guy leading the band. And I just went, what the fuck is going on here? Why does this keep happening? You know? And I've never been in a band where I had a singer who played an instrument. So that's a whole other thing. But it's one of those things where you just go, okay, I see a pattern here, and I need Neil deGrasse Tyson to step in and explain the mysteries of the cosmos to me, because this makes no goddamn sense. Anyway.
Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Hey, how about we take a break so I can, drain the main vein in Earl?
Sounds like a plan. I need to smoke. We'll be right back.
Official break right now.